Hi, and welcome to the DEI Drive-Thru, a podcast in collaboration with Diversity Collective Nampa and Luminary Learning Solutions. This podcast is a space where we explore topics in the DE&I space in our efforts to bring to you a variety of perspectives and in the hopes that we also do find a middle ground. To start off our podcast, we are exploring a topic that is rather pertinent in today's day and age, a topic that has defined us as individuals and consequently shaped how we view the world. Welcome to parenting, friend, foe, or trusted ally. Exploring this topic with me, I have three distinguished guests, so bringing to you not just one, but three different perspectives from a mom, a dad, and a child herself. We have with us Davina Kern, CHRO for the Central Bank and former CHRO of Helen. She has 26 years of experience in HR and has also worked in a plethora of companies ranging from David Puris Group, McLaren's Group, and MAS. She's a career woman, a mother, a wife, and a daughter. Davina's experience is not only diverse, but her kindness and grace through all of it truly stands out. We also have with us Diane Fernando, CEO of ANC Education and the coordinating principal of Bicheli International School. Diane brings forward a novel and yet practical insights on raising, guiding, and inspiring kids of the 21st century. His experience in the space of education brings forward a veteran and seasoned perspective. And bringing to you the child's perspective, we have with us Tasha De Silva. Undergraduate at the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Tasha is a theatre enthusiast, actor, director, and freelancer. Tasha's background in acting is accompanied by an ATCNE Communications and Speech and Drama. Tasha is a storyteller who weaves narratives and invokes emotion through her acting. So to all three of our guests, welcome to the DEI Drive-Thru. It's an absolute pleasure to have all of you. So to start off our podcast, I'm going to direct my first question and bring forward to the mom's perspective on this topic. So Davina, recently, a report done by McKinsey found that in 2025 for women in the workplace, there was only 29% of women that were represented in C-suite roles. And a pertinent reason for this being that even though organizations were making headway in terms of making the workplace more equitable and friendly for women to balance the work, there were certainly work-life balance issues that women were facing. So my first question to you is, as a mum who had to juggle all of this, did you find juggling and balancing the two roles challenging?
Well, firstly, Shakya, thank you for the invitation. And I'm pleased to be here, especially to talk on a mom's perspective, being a mom, working mom. The answer is yes. I think being a working mom, a career woman, in today's context, balancing work and as a role as a mom is extremely challenging, especially as a woman leader when you work upper in the organization. So coming back on your question, why is 29% in terms of leadership? I'm happy that there is 29% because we need to have women leaders up there and at every level. Because if you look at the structure of a man and a woman, why a man is a man and a woman is a woman, there is a reason biologically and on the thinking process as well. So it's always good to have, even in an organization at every level, men and women coming together. It was challenging, yes. There were times when I needed leave for my kids, I was not able to take. But I wouldn't put it as because I was a woman. I would say it's the call that I have taken on, because that same question, if you ask from a male, if you had your duties to do in an organization, sometimes you're unable to take that lead. It's just that, fortunately for me, I have never been deprived of any of my superiors of my leave, but it's a conscious call you make because the role that you play in an organization and also at home. The role that you play in an organization, especially when you reach the C-suite, it's very demanding. So the choice that you make as a woman, would you want to be there or not? And I think us being females, there's an empathy side of it. Usually we look at DEI inclusivity in the organization. We forget the inclusivity at our home front. What is more inclusivity? We have to engage everyone at home. For me, fortunately, I think I was blessed to have both my parents, my in-laws, my husband, my children, and I'm very good at delegating. And I do tell them my challenges, and I do share if I have anything at office that I'm unable to attend, I would tell them in advance. I at least prepare them. The times that I could go for, I will always make time that I could go for. And if there was something very, very important, and as a leader I had to be there, I will always ask my boss, there is something like this. Is there any opportunity that my deputy can be there for me? And she or he wouldn't be in a position to tell me at times that I really, really want to be there. And I don't think we have leaders who doesn't have empathy. It's just that sometimes we don't ask. And also being women leaders at the top, we need to understand to get there, there's a sacrifice you make. So you cannot make an organization responsible to ensure that, everything is put in place for you just because you are a female to give you special attention. But having said which, I think a lot of the organizations, even in Sri Lanka and overseas, I think in Sri Lanka, there's a lot of work around organizations like yours, who is working around supporting women. And organizations do have different platforms, different facilities to help women encounter and support in the challenges that they go through, like creche facilities, flexible working hours, you name it, it's there. Having said which, we shouldn't forget there's a role I have to play at home as a mother. So it's been challenging. If you ask me, there are times I have fallen down. So it's extremely challenging. It's not easy for my 26, 27 years of experience for me to be here today as a CHRO. The role has been extremely challenging. It's not easy that, I rose up the ladder and I had everything for me, like everyone supporting and, all of that. It is, you need to ensure you have your supporting lines working with you. And thank you for your word when you introduced me saying kindness. I think it's not only being a female. We're all human beings, and if you give kindness, you get it back. So it makes your life much, much more easy, be it a male or a female, to do your job better.
Thank you, Deveen. And I think you touched on a very holistic understanding in the sense of acknowledging where you are, but also, I think in the space of DE&I, it's very easy to get carried away in that need to build an equitable workforce that we unfortunately forget to realize, as you very correctly point out, that there's a role that each and every one of us have to play. If I were to question you a little bit, I think one of the key words that came out from the answer that you gave me was the fact that you have to make that choice. And I think not just as women, but probably more so as women, since our role is very diverse, and especially for working women, choosing when and where to make that choice, and also making that choice can sometimes be really tough. Of course, there are instances where the choice is probably clear-cut. And so an outsider, it might seem like, oh, this is the choice to make. But I suppose the person making that choice only knows the amount of inner turmoil they're going through, trying to decide, especially if you're an ambitious woman as well. For somebody like that, how do they really make the tough calls and take the choice when they wait to?
Well, that is a very personal question, because the circumstances will tell you whether you need to be here or you need to be there. The balance is yours in terms of what is important to you at that particular time. Had situations where I had to, I thought, I was in the peak of my career at some point in the past. And my daughter turned around and told me, Mama, you have time for 2,000 people. You don't have time for the two of us. That just broke me down. So which at that point, that's a hard hit than anyone would say anything. So I would say it's a personal choice you made. So at that point in time, I was thinking, what I'm doing is it right? I'm impacting many. I have time for many, but I don't have time for my kids. So it's a choice that you make, if I'm to say, Shakya. And also, how you go in an organization as a woman, you have to be equally going in for other social activities as well. Sometimes someone will think, men have the liberty of going, and as females, we don't have. Yes, we don't have, because we need to understand that if you're a mom, there is your time required, your role required at her. So I'm in many organizations, many committees right at the moment. So I pick and choose what I have to go and not. Speaking with Shakya a little while ago, as I said, last week I had 3 events to go in one of the institutes I serve as a council member. And I chose to go only for 1, I left 2. Because that's the choice you make. Because that time with my children is more important to me than going. Because you don't have to go for everything. We always think we have to go for everything because everyone else is going, I need to be there. But the answer is no. Sometimes in life we think we need to collect, build. But we don't realize the beauty of it. Sometimes taking a step back makes your picture more beautiful, makes your little building blocks more beautiful. So you need to make that personal choice. So I'm unable to give one answer, Shakya, because it's a personal choice, circumstances that you will make based on the situation that you are in.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So you've heard the mom's perspective when it comes to work-life balance, and also when it really comes to making those tough choices when you have to. Let's hear from the father's perspective. So that, I think it's very common, especially in cultures like ours, to have a very stereotypical notion to believe that fathers need to be the strict disciplinarian. Do you want this notion to be true?
Well, thank you, Shakya, for inviting me to be here. And I'm privileged to be amongst 3 beautiful ladies as a dad. Well, you're right. I believe society believes that the fathers should be that strict person in a family. And I come from a family where I'm the youngest of 4 boys. And my dad was extremely strict, to the extent that I'm sure in my era, people would agree or would have that same feeling. He passed away 5 years ago at the age of 83. Until then, he did not say that he loved me. But I know he loved me, but it never came out of his mouth. Words never came out of him like that. And also, he was so strict that the relationship I had with him was not a friendly one, or not a relationship where I could go to him anytime and talk to him. But it was sad that in his final years, when he wanted to actually have a discussion with me, that relationship was not built. I think that is a notion of the past. I think the newer dads are much more different. And also, some dads think, okay, my dad was like this, I have to be like that, or I don't have the experience of being a cool dad. Not that you have to be a cool dad, but I don't believe that parenting can be learned by reading a book or anything. So it's by actually practically being with your children. So I have a son and a daughter, and I like to think that I'm a cool dad, but I believe being strict is not the answer. Yes, you need to be strict at times for sure, but when you're parenting, I think for a child, the parent will be a foe at some time. But the parent may not even know about it, especially with a mobile phone. If you don't give the phone, or if you don't give a device, yes, for the child, the parent would be the real enemy. But there are many times that you actually have to be a friend to the child. And I have been a principal for the last 10 years, and I've seen so many children lacking that love, lacking that friendship from parents. Because nowadays you see both parents are going to work, and in most cases, and they think giving the biggest birthday party at the grandest place is the thing. Now, just to tell you, Shakya, I remember back when I was a kid, The birthday which I still remember was where one of my friends' dad took us to the Attidiya Vela and we did fishing. Whereas there were so many other birthday parties with great food, which I don't remember at all at different hotels. But the experience and that love that dad took to take us out to the Attidiya Vela, I still remember it after 40 odd years. So I always tell the parents of my school kids that you need to be a friend, but you need to have that fine line also. You cannot be a friend always, because I'm talking here from a dad's perspective as well as a school leader, where I have had some parents being too cool with the children, where they even go to, in fact, offer liquor at young ages to children, which is not the ideal thing, just to be a friend. Whereas you need to know where you got to draw the line. But I think being an ally and walking along with the child and being there for the child when they want is what the children nowadays need. So which will give them that emotional confidence, emotional strength, and make them grow up to be proper ladies and gentlemen who could face the future without a fear. Because if you drive that, being that strict father and drive so much fear into a child, when they go into school, when they go into society, they are going to face problems, because they will have some kind of a fear even with that notion of having a very strict father. And I see it in schools where we have kids who have different issues in class. And if you just look at what the reason is, it's nothing to do with the child, but something at home has gone wrong. So I believe, yes, there is a notion that fathers should be strict or should be that iron man in the house. But no, fathers could cry with the child. Fathers should be able to show emotion to the children and be there for them. And I believe if that could be done, a child's life would actually be much more richer. If I made any sense to you.
Oh, no, you absolutely most certainly did, because I think I would also very much agree with your notion of our parents, and especially our dads also, be our ally, because at the end of the day, you quite literally only have your parents to count on and turn on as well. But if I were to question a little further on the topic, where I completely agree with you that they bring the interviews are ally, and like you said, there are instances certainly when we don't get what we want as children, we might look at our parents and say, oh, they are the biggest enemy you could possibly have. Even for sometimes the most trivial of things, unfortunately. But I also do think that there is that notion that if you take away the fear factor, how do you still be so? So if parents are striving to be our friend, to be cool with us, to be our ally, if the fear component is what is taken away, how do we drive discipline? And also, how do you draw that line between being the strict discipline, where the disciplinarian that brings forward discipline, but also your friend and ally at the same time?
I think, Shakya, if you gain the respect of your child, you don't have to be that strict person. So how you gain respect with your child, it's up to you. You have to be there for him or her. You need to walk the talk, and you need to actually, I would say, if I'm to tell you, I have my school, and where at our school, during the elementary sports meet or the concert, you find the parents, both parents, grandparents, even the neighbors coming for the show. When they come to the primary, the neighbors go away. When they come to the middle school, the grandparents are out. When they come to the upper school, sometimes even a parent is not there, or just one parent. So, whom can the child depend on? You see, it's like when you buy a brand new car or a brand new phone, you look at it every day, you wash it every day, you keep it so clean. As it gets older, you don't have much use or much value to it. But your child, you can't lose the interest in your child. You must have the interest in your child. I know now I'm 50 and my mom is 84. She still treats me like a kid, and I have to accept that. Like whenever I go out on a trip, she tells, Puta, don't get into the water. I'm 50, right? But I have to accept my mom because I know where she is coming from now because I am a dad. So it's a relationship. If you build a proper relationship from your baby days, from the kids' baby days, I think that trust and the respect will be there. So you don't have to you need to draw the line and tell when to stop or when it has to be, when you say, when you say no, they understand that it's a no. But as long as that's done, and also the other thing is, you can discipline your child, but after that event is over, forget about it. Next moment you need to hug the child and it's a different story. You cannot carry on. That's the worst part. Because I have had children coming to me and telling me they get caught very small problems, small little things. They tell, sir, please don't tell our parents. You can give any punishment, but don't tell our parents. I mean, have they built a relationship with the children? The children are willing to tell us anything. We are outsiders as teachers or school administrators. They are willing to tell us anything, but not the parents. Where is that relationship? So if that bonding is there with the parents and the kids, I believe that you don't have to be such a strict disciplinarian. Kids will understand. You should be able to explain to them in a way that they will understand, and also go in the middle part. Yeah.
That's a really lovely answer, because I think it's funny you mention how your mom treats you now, because we have a running joke at home that my dad's mom, my grandma, to date calls my dad baby. And my father is ready to cringe, I think, when he hears it, but you take it.
Yeah.
And I think I live with my grandparents now. So I always say, Mama, I'm 23, I'm an adult, I can do certain things. And she quietly tells me, that notion is never going to change, or always going to be my child. But as you say, I think the time and the concerted effort towards building that relationship is something that is quintessential. Because if you're at a point where children can't turn to their parents and return to an outsider, it is certainly a very sad position to be in.
Just want to add one more thing. And I told my dad was very sick, but he had a lot of good things in him. I mean, he gave so much for us, for our education, and he had the love, but he just did not want to show it in a way, right? But there was instances where he would be so mad if we had the fan on or the light on in the room. And we were thinking, come on, it's just a light or just a fan. But now that I pay the bills, I know that he was actually telling us something very valuable. Now I tell my kids, switch off the fan, switch off the light. So I think it's a circle where, everyone, one day a child will become a parent, they will know, okay, this is why my dad or mom said that. So it will go around, and I hope all the children will understand. And that's what
Thank you, and I think that beautifully leads up to my next question to our child representative, Tasha. So Tasha, we've heard so far from the mom's perspective, we've heard from the dad's perspective about challenging stereotypical notions in terms of being the strict disciplinarian. What I want to ask from you is, as children, do you feel with your effort changes based on your mom or dad, or do you treat the both of them one and the same?
I think it definitely changes, but that's not because I favor one or the other. It's just they provide support in different ways. So, for example, I'm going to draw from my personal life. If I'm going through a struggle, what I would do is, if I want to be heard, if I want to just rant and complain about this person or this situation, the first person I'll go to is my mom. Because she'll just listen to me and she'll let me get everything off my chest. And then afterwards, she'll say, hey, maybe try this, or she'll let me say what I want to say. Whereas if I want to practical solution and I want something done like really fast, and like my house is about to blow out, but I need like, I don't know, water, or, the first person I'll go to is my dad, because he will logically break it down and he'll be like, okay, this is not a problem. You need to just calm down. And like halfway through, while I'm telling the problem, we will interrupt me and be like, no, fix here. So in terms of, if I want to watch my mom, Whereas if I want an immediate solution, my dad. But that isn't to say my mom doesn't give me a solution. That isn't to say my dad doesn't listen to me either. It's just their strong suits are. Whereas this same thing applies for good news. I'm still like a read. So when I get my results, or if I go for one exam or something like that, the first person I'll tell is my mom, because she also comes from that background. She is an English teacher. I'm studying English, so it's very easy for me to just talk to her about that and analyze certain things. And I'll be like, "Do you think I should have asked differently or something like that?" And she, again, she's of that world, so she understands. Whereas my dad's in the corner here, so. Anything about work, I would want to talk to him and get his advice. But I'm 100% sure if the roles were flipped and my dad was an English teacher and my mom was in the corporate world, those things would have changed. So it's just based on their personalities that now I'm selected who to share what to me. But also at the same time, that isn't to say that I don't share everything with both of them. Because just because my mom's an English teacher, I share my university life with her. My dad also hears a earphone about that. But I may not emphasize certain things. I might not go into detail about certain things, and vice versa. Did that answer the question? It certainly did, because I was thinking it's quite interesting you mentioned that, because I think when we talk of as children and go to our parents with certain gifts, our parents probably assume that it's because we favor one more with the other. And I had one situation where once my mom was like, if you call me every day, you should call Appachi every day. I'll give him a breakdown of your day too. But then I tried going that with Appachi. He was like, actually, no, I don't need to know all. Yeah, you come to me when you're in trouble. And then I'll sort you out. So it's not that you favor one over the other, but it's also the fact that probably what you relate to one over the other changes, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
And what I think is interesting is the support that they provide. My dad, for example, would support me in this corporate life. My mom would support me in union life. So every little things and probably just...
Yeah, if I want to talk about my day, my mom is my go-to person, because as you said, very rightly so, my dad does not want to hear all of that. He'll just be like, he'll play his chess game and just be like, okay, is this important?
But let me tell you, all dads are not that, okay?
Yeah. Having said that,
I love to hear my kids' stories every day.
Okay.
And I sometimes want them to actually come and tell. Yeah. I really want them to come and tell me.
I think it depends, because my dad is definitely there for the tea. Yeah, he's there for the gossip. He's there if he'll listen. But it depends on what I'm saying. If it's a little bit boring or something, it's out of context, you'll be like, okay, is this really...
That's valuable, because I think it is so true, and strangely enough, my mom will give the rundown of the daily events, including nitty-gritties that probably don't even matter and have no relevance. My dad will get all the corporate hardcore stuff and mania stuff. And the roles reverse when boyfriends and girlfriends come to equation. You go to our dad when we have things to talk about. Yes, and then we say, Appachi, now you tell Amma, and it was. I should have made that to you as well, right, in terms of how you would approach things then. Would they seem to because your mom is your mom? So you've got three different perspectives. Now, while we heard from them individually, let's hear something from all three of them in common. So giving awareness to the fact that not only of the cultures that we live in, but the world we live in as well. One thing that I've often pondered on is whether the social construct and how society and cultures are in general, whether that really influences how we view our role as children and how parents view their roles as mom and dad, and how they should consequently approach their respective roles. So we start off with Dan.
Well, I think it has changed over the years. There was a time when I was a kid, most of the moms were at home. They were housewives. And people thought, that's just a job. But it's not an easy job being a housewife as well. Not an easy job at all. My mom gave up her job when my eldest brother was born. So she brought up 4 boys. very nicely, I would say. You can see that in us. And my dad was a working dad, right? He was a strict disciplinarian, as I was telling you. But now things have changed, and now you find most families, both parents going to work. So the responsibilities are shared, right? And kids also, everything has changed over the years. So even the kids' minds have changed, I think, because the expectations earlier, it was the girls would always go to the mom for something, and the boys would go to the dads. But I think no, things have changed. A lot of dads are doing the work of kids now, right? Not just the dropping and the picking, but even now in Australia, just to let you know, my kids are born in Australia. So the first bath for the baby is given by the dad. It's a practice there, which I'm happy about. So I tell my kids, I still tell them they're big. I gave the first bath. So whereas if it was in Sri Lanka, you'd have had your grandmother, grandfather, or the whole extended family trying to look after the kids. There, because it was only us there, we were able to. I got closer to the kids because of that. But coming back to your question, I think yes, there would have been, but now things have changed, and roles are all changed now. You cannot stick to something and say, yes, a woman's role is this, a mom's role is that, a dad's role is this. It's all, it's a share game now. And also you need to do that because at the end of the day, whatever work you do, as Devina very correctly said, if you don't give time to your kids, it's pointless. And I always believe you have a child only till they're about 18, after they go into university, whatever, and they're out. So if you don't build that relationship within that 18 years, whatever job you do, whatever position you come into, I mean, it's a waste.
And the you come about your festival. Well, I'm going to pick up from what Dan just said. I think the roles have changed from then to now, because I remember when I got married, I was with my in-laws. So the expectation was always the mother to do and, all of that. But I think the roles have changed and we both now, because we do share. Me and my husband do share the priorities we have to do for the kids. So sometimes actually they don't call me, they call the father.
Yeah.
They know in first ring I may not pick up sometimes, so they'll call the father. But having said that, I think especially I would say, although there is a mom and a dad always you can look up to, I think there's a key role a mom has to play in society. Because we shouldn't forget the fact that when we were brought up, although my mom also was working at the time, but by 4:30 she was at home. So we had full access at 4:30. In today's context, even you come home, you're still, at phone or on email and things like that. But I speak on both contexts because being in the corporate world, the newer kids who come into the organizations, we say, oh my God, they don't respect, they're on the phone. Who brought them there? We. And I would say, and I always believe there's a purpose of a man and a woman. And I think the empathy part, sorry, Diane, the empathy part usually comes from the man, right? So I think there's a key role for every mom to play and every dad to play, because the kids who come into the workforce is our kids. It's how we've raised them, how we've disciplined them. The good side of all technology is advanced. You have global access, you have so much of knowledge and all of that, but there's a flip side to it. If you ask parents, would have you loved your kids to have a phone or not? I'm sure out of 1,000 people, 1,000 out of 1,000 will say no. As much as there is knowledge, there is disruption as well. So parents, especially I would say parents together, it's very challenging than before, because you're dealing with the kids who have access into technology. So managing that also becomes another challenge, because you're at work and sometimes you have to give the phone because they travel, and you have to have accessibility if they're going for school practices or things like that. So I think the role that a mom has to play is a lot. And I'll pick up from something you said, hugging. Very, very important. And when I go home, there are times that I take my 21-year-old and I keep on my lap. And sometimes we think that that's not important. You said,
Very important.
even my mom, sometimes when I go to her place, she would feed me still. And kids laugh and say, Mama, and I was feeding you. A mom is a mom, either you're 1 year, 20 years, or 30 years, or 50 years. So that bond is very, very important. And I would always emphasize the role that you have to play as a mother cannot be compromised. But being a career woman, there are challenges. I confess, there are challenges I have faced in trying to balance things. But when you realize, you then check and adjust. And when you have to take a step back, you would always take that step back. So that hugging with kids is very, very important. It gives a lot of a safety net for them.
You said it depends on how you're being raised, right? And I found that so interesting because my parents obviously came from that perspective of the mother needs to be at home. She's the one who nurtures, whereas the dad needs to be the main breadwinner. But now things have changed, as both of you mentioned. And what I found was so funny was when I was little, my mom, we used to watch Disney movies all the time. And the princesses' stories, my mom would always pause before the wedding or something. And she's like, but you don't need a man to do this. And she was like, you can, like with hard work, you can get there. And I found that so interesting, and I've taken that. And that's how I'm living now. And that's because she taught me that. But I also think now I've worked with a couple of schools in terms of directing their shows and stuff. And what I found interesting was I work in device theatre. So we devise as we go. We create the play as a group. And it's their perspectives that I'm getting. And most of the time we deal with family shows and stuff like that. And what I realize is they also have this notion that the mother is housewife. So immediately if there's a mother role that they put, it is in the kitchen. And I feel today I didn't expect that. So when I still go, it's immediately like, okay, I want a house scene. They will put the mother in the kitchen, the dad is shouting at some child. And I found that so interesting. And we're slowly breaking that, and we're saying, hey, but what about, why can't the mom go to work? And it's just, no, it's not there. There are a few students who will bring that perspective because their parents have done it. But apart from that, majority, or what I'm seeing right now, it's more or less they still have those standards that we're kind of tied to. But also, I think because we know the standards and in our personal lives, we see that, we can also break it now and we can challenge it.
Fantastic. And I agree with you on that as well. I think all three of you bring acknowledgement to the fact that the world is changing. But at the same time, there are bits and pieces of the world that probably remain the same. But having that awareness is what enables us to move forward and ensure we break those modes. In essence, I think that is what this podcast is also striving to achieve, to bring to light what it is, but to also challenge what is there and what more we can do.
Shakya, can I add something there, please? For the benefit of the listeners, I have found that in many of the schools, that the kids, like nowadays, you find so many single parents.
Yeah.
So it could be a mom who's doing the role of a mom and a dad, or it could be a dad who's doing the role of a mom and a dad, So that's great. Well done for taking the role of two people. But however, I feel children in the initial stages would need a father figure and a mother figure, or a male and a lady in their life. So it is important, if you're a single parent, to have extended family or something where the child could actually, because at certain different ages, for the boy, you might need a male figure to go and talk about something. For a girl, you might need a mother figure to go and talk about something. So it's always important, because we're discussing about the mom and dad, that I have seen in society today that we have a lot of single parents, but we can't, there's nothing to talk about that, but it's just that if that's the case, make sure that your child gets a benefit of having somebody in your family, extended family, whom they could actually reach out to as well if they need to. Because some kids, if not, I have seen in schools struggling mentally because they only have either the mother or just the father at home. Yeah. I hope that gives some perspective. Yeah.
No, certainly that brings a lot of depth because again, I think we're talking about two roles and even for us as children, we need to respond and look at it. And I completely grant what you mentioned because there are times where you do really need your mom or the mom figure. There are times that you certainly like girl and her dad. So I think if there's one key takeaway from this podcast, it is the value and the importance of all three relationships of being a mom, a dad, and a child. So thank you all for sharing your perspectives and for giving us your time. And to our listeners listening in, we sincerely hope this podcast has challenged your perception and also widened it. So thank you for stopping by the DEI Drive-Thru, where we drive dialogue, engage in equity, and inspire impact. Thank you.